Actually, this was intended to be on the big screen. So my goal will now be to memorize 24 digits as the start of my speech. And here's a random number generator. So it will start now. And when I say start, it starts. And stop. Okay, what I was just doing, there were 24 digits visible on the small laptop, and I just memorized them. So you just have to believe me that there were 24 digits and that I memorized them. Sorry. And what will now happen, I turn to the audience, and I hope that now I will announce digit by digit. Each digit will appear on the screen. So we would start now with 5, 1, 9, 8, 4, 9, 9, 6, 6, 8, 7, 2, 2, 8, 5, 7, 2, 4, 7, 5, 2, 1, 0, 3. So I hope people notice. Thank you. Whoa, okay. Thanks. Memory is central to who we are, but independent of what you just saw, our memory is very limited. And I also want to test you now. I now will show you 15 words. You will have 20 seconds to memorize them. Please try as hard as you can, as if it would be an exam. And after those 20 seconds, we will see. Time starts now. Try as hard as you can. You still have 10 seconds. Look at all the words, however you want. 5 seconds, 3, and time is over. And now see how much you can remember. Really try to find all of the words in your head. Go from one to the other. And what I can tell you is that some words might come easily, some might take some time, and some might not come at all. It might feel like that you might get 7, 8, or 9 words, but there are still some words who are out of reach, that you cannot grasp. And I did this to illustrate that that's an effect that you get in school, in university, in your job, in daily life, that there is still too much information, that feeling that you have learned something and that it is simply not really accessible to you, that you need it, but you can't access it. And that is something that I think is stress, that the feeling that we have to learn more than we really can. And in addition to that, it has been proven that when we learn something in a natural way, that after one day, about 70% of it is not accessible anymore. Why is that the case? Because the brain is very good at creating associations, but those are not stable. After one day, many of those are lost, and you only got the main points of what you wanted to remember, a bit like headlines or bullet points. And that's often not enough. So what can you do? You can use notes, but then if you use notes, you often would consult them and people would see that it's not very convincing, that you need something to aid your memory. And I think that we can do better. So, and I think as limited as our memory might be, I am sure that you can still recall the little memory feed in the beginning. And you might have asked yourself what I did there. It was not something of eidetic memory, because I think that does not exist. What I did there was I used something called the method of loci. I used a number of locations in a fixed sequence and put the information on the location. It is a method that has been used since millennia by the ancient Romans and Greeks, and also by monks in the Middle Ages. And in modern times, it has even become a sport. People are sitting there and memorizing vast numbers of names, words, and faces. And in this sport, I am the current German and European champion, and I hold the world record of 134 words in 5 minutes. So, yeah. Yes, it is really hard enough. There are people from China, Mongolia, everywhere, and they are training like crazy, so I'm very happy that I still hold one world record. But I think the very important question is, why does this work? And it works because the brain, and thus the mind, are hardwired to connect information with places. This has been shown in numerous studies and also makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. If you know where to get food and where the danger is, then you have a survival edge. And I can also show you how this works in your own life. Think of your last vacation. Think of the hotel, at the dining hall, and think of the table that you were sitting. And you will notice that one after the other memories will start to emerge. Memories perhaps of a conversation, of a plate in front of you with a nice meal, with the smell, the taste, and perhaps the whole feeling of the hotel, and perhaps also a longing that you want to go back there. And it is similar to what the French author Marcel Proust wrote in his most famous novel, In Search for Lost Time, where the smell and taste of a Madeleine evoked a multitude of childhood memories in the protagonist's mind. And as you just saw, locations can even be a stronger trigger. And the main difference is that what these triggers do is not voluntarily. And what we want to do is, we want, by our own will, connect information with a place. And for that you can also do this with me, of course, you need locations. Try to follow them now. You stand at the door, you go down the stairs, in front of the house there's a car, and you follow the street on the right side, there's a wall, and you come to a big place with a city hall in the background. So, follow this in your mind. You need to keep the sequence. From the door, down the stairs, in front of the house, there's the car, wall, and the place with the city hall. So, what do you do next? You put images, encoded information, on each of these locations. And you try to connect the images with the locations. You look for similarities because perhaps they have the same shape, the same material, or they embody the same principle. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a great speech about the ecological dangers of the modern world, about the endangerment of the rainforest. And the first 2 sentences of your speech would be the following: that the rainforest has significantly decreased in size in the last years due to industrialization, for example, because of the building of highways, and that any further increase needs to be prevented in the future by cooperation of all involved governmental agencies. So the point is, if you want to memorize this, what do? You choose keywords. You choose a keyword for each half sentence or full sentence that is enough to lead you to the whole meaning and to allow you to speak freely. I chose rainforest, decreased, highways, prevent, and government. What we will do now is, you now have your 5 locations, you have your 5 keywords. Now we try to connect them. Look for similarities between them. Door and rainforest, both are made of wood. Then, stairs and the word decrease, both are going downwards. The car and the highway, the car drives on highways. Wall and prevent, a wall usually prevents someone from coming to the inside. And city hall and government, it's clear, city hall is part of government. The idea is that your location, that some aspect of your location can lead you to your keyword, that you have a connection. Let us try this. The door, made of wood, rainforest. Stairs, going downward, decreased. Cars drive on highways. The wall, to prevent. And city hall, part of government. And now, when you have these keywords safely in your mind, each keyword will enable you to go one step further with your speech. Now you might think, okay, I could also have memorized these 2 sentences easily without any memory aids. Sure. But there has never been a speech that only had 2 sentences, more like 200. And if you look at this, it might be clear that it becomes a bit more difficult. And this might only be the first part. Here you have 30 words and not 15, and you saw that you already struggled a bit with 15 words. But the great thing is, if you use the locations, it doesn't really matter if you have 5 or 500, as long as you make the connection properly and repeat again until you can perfectly reproduce it, and then it's safe. And then you go easily, like on a walk, from one place in your mind to the other, and everything comes along naturally. It is not really harder if you have more. It's not like natural memory. And also a great thing is, it is much more resilient to forgetting. While I said earlier that usually if you learn stuff naturally, 70% will be forgotten. If you put things on locations, usually more than 90% will be there the next day. Also, it is not just for memorizing. A very interesting aspect is because by using keywords, you also need to kind of symbolize them to place them there. It is also an interesting tool for text analysis. Because when I do it, I very often have the experience that I see, okay, a certain keyword, a certain symbol seems similar to something which I had read 10 minutes ago. And I notice those 2 areas of the text are related, and I wouldn't have noticed that otherwise. But from this theoretical point, perhaps you're also interested how I use this in my own daily life. I love golf. Golf is great, golf is relaxing, and I very often do it before my memory competitions. And last year I went to a tournament in the US, and it was a golf resort. It called itself like this, and I booked a fairway room, which they offered. And when I came there and I looked around, I saw there is no golf course. There was just a fence. There was just a lobby area, a fence, and you couldn't play golf. And I said, wow, there was no information, there was no email, there was nothing. And you have to know that the main selling point of the whole thing was the golf course, because the hotel itself was basically only a small lobby area and nothing else in the middle of nowhere. So I went to my room and I thought, okay, this will be tough because a hotel manager who does this is also probably a bit of a ruthless guy, because he would not be afraid to tell a guest, okay, what's your problem here, you're booked. So I knew that when I went to the guy, it would not do to show any kind of weakness or the slightest hesitation. I needed to get this all down. But I had a number of points I wanted to make, not just 1, 2, or 3, but rather more than 10. But I had my method. I went to my room, I wrote it down, nicely ordered, Fairview Hotel, golf resort, no information and no email, that I had lost trust in the brand, and so on, with the strongest point last. And I made keywords, and I put them on my locations, and I repeated it once, and I knew I had it down. And I knocked, and I saw the hotel manager in his room, and he smiled. He was easygoing, but he was also watchful. And I mean, you know the guys. And when I took a seat, I knew that I had all my points down, that I could tell them all. And I could keep eye contact, I could be calm and controlled, and because I had no fear at all of forgetting, I could much more concentrate on the delivery of what I wanted to say. A pause here, a slightly raised voice there, a bit of disappointment there, and his smile got less and less. This guest was to be taken seriously. And when I had also told him what I wanted, he wrote it down and looked at me once more, and you could see that in his head there was kind of a risk and reward calculation, because this guest was quite determined. And then he looked up and said, Mr. Reinhard, that is all doable. And what I had asked from him was a 50% reduction in room price, free food for the whole of my stay, and 3 green fees at another golf course, plus free transportation. because they don't do this. It was a nice success. So it's just, and this is just an illustration, because I had in my life many similar experiences where there was a situation of pressure and a challenge that I wanted to overcome, and where this really helped me. This talk here, not the least. And the people that I teach, they are CFOs who want to memorize financial statements, traders who want to gain an edge during their daily dealings, but also artists who want to draw a bit more precisely, because they notice when they look at an object and then they go to the canvas, then the object is already close to having dissolved. And also companies who want to teach English to Chinese students, but also some who want to teach Chinese to the world. And it can be used by scientists to memorize the latest articles, and by mathematicians, and basically by everybody who wants to keep more control of their life and less stress. And if people still think that it's strange and that the method is weird, I mean, progress has always been made by the unconventional thinkers. And the main thing is it works. That's the ultimate litmus test. And as the method becomes more well-known, people will have to decide whether either to ignore it and to give the other people a definite edge, or to embrace it as something new and promising. And as we have seen in the beginning, because our memory is limited, this method definitely has a lot of potential for our own progress. And business and science have always been integral parts of humanity's pursuit to discover the future. And I think that we should use any means to get there faster. So at the end of my speech, I can only say, try it out and see how far you can get. And I can promise you that, unlike the protagonist of Marcel Proust's famous novel, your time will not be lost. Thank you.